It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Another eventful week, Mitch, in the world of BYU athletics. We'll be breaking down BYU hoops, BYU football. Mitch went into overdrive this week. He's got interviews with the head football coach, Kalani Sitake, coming your way in less than an hour. Kalani Sitake. You also caught up with Brandon Dunson, but he's not even the newest member of the BYU coaching staff, as they brought in Chris Burgess, which we'll get to in a little bit. And then we'll speak with one of the newest BYU defenders and someone who got rave reviews in spring football, Jack Kelly, as well. Just, man, this offseason, it feels like every week there's storylines, there's energy, there's juice. It's a lot of fun, Mitch.
It is a lot of fun, and this BYU basketball program continues to inspire a lot of excitement for Cougar Nation. That's where we start things off in the starting lineup.
The starting lineup. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the starting lineup on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Kevin Young means business, man. He is not messing around. His latest addition to the coaching staff is Utah assistant Chris Burgess coming back to BYU. Burgess, of course, a former Duke and Utah player, once upon a time recruited to BYU, then eventually became an assistant coach under Mark Pope for 3 seasons. Spent the last 2 at Utah. Now he's back on BYU's staff. And, you know, Kevin Young might lack college basketball experience, but he is surrounding himself with people that are wired to recruit at a high level. It's another impressive addition for Kevin Young.
This is the most impressive addition outside of returning Richie Saunders down Hall. I mean, you got to have great players, and to bring those guys back, nothing will trump getting those guys back in BYU blue. But to bring in Chris Burgess, who many in this market, Mitch, thought should have been the guy.
Oh, yeah.
That were saying, this is the obvious candidate. Go with Chris Burgess. And I think some of that, too, to be fair, was maybe not understanding how far BYU Hoops was willing to go. They've never went this far. They're all in. And that's what makes it so exciting. We saw the deal for Kevin Young, and as he continues to make hires and add to the staff, because it wasn't just Burgess, right? Brandon Dunson was the first. Burgess announced next, and they got a chief of staff, a new position with Doug Stewart. So it looks like the resources are flowing in abundance. But Chris Burgess is such a big hire on so many levels. First and foremost, he knows BYU. He's been there recently. He's got a lot of connections to current players. He recruited those guys. He recruited Down Hall. He recruited Richie Saunders, Foose, Traore, all these dudes. He's got those relationships. And then because he stayed local, he's been recruiting the local scene as well. So now, because Brandon Dunson, I like Brandon Dunson a lot. That is a trajectory-based hire where you think that he can become a great coach. He's got no ties to Utah. But Chris Burgess does. He's got tremendous ties with top Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints talent as well. And to convince him to come to it speaks volumes to Kevin Young and to Chris Burgess, because Chris could have very well said, I should be in this position. I deserve this, and I'm mad. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to leave my alma mater. I'm not going to come back for a lateral position. I don't want to do it. The fact that he put all that aside and said, what is a better opportunity for my career now? It's clearly BYU, by the way. I think he made the right decision. But for him to do that, how many of us could have done that in that situation where maybe you felt slighted initially because you felt like you deserved that, but then you put that aside and you jump in, and for Kevin Young to make that happen, to make him feel comfortable to do that, it's just an amazing story on all angles, Mitch. I didn't see this happening, to be honest. It surprised me a little bit, but it's huge for BYU hoops.
And it really caught wind or got in overdrive after Game 4 for the Phoenix Suns. It came into play for BYU. And you bring up Kevin Young, I think it also speaks to his character and the humility to say, I'm going to bring in a guy that previously worked at BYU for another coach, and he's willing to take on that guy because you might look at that as if you're Kevin Young and say, well, I don't want this guy to come and say, well, this is how we did it before. Like Kevin Young, I think, is open to collaboration, and he wants this staff to be involved with piecing together what the vision of this program is going to be. But ultimately, Kevin Young's the top dog. But I love how creative he's getting with piecing together the staff. Like you mentioned, I was one of those people that said, just hire Chris Burgess. It would be a slam dunk. It'd be an easy move to get. You could get him. But, they were swinging for the fences to get Kevin Young, and getting Kevin Young was a massive get for BYU because it continues the momentum of what you had in year one in the Big 12 Conference, but you feel like you can build on it because BYU basketball, for as much good as they did in the 5 years with Mark Pope, and it was good. Like, it was a good run for BYU hoops. There's so much left to be had, and Kevin Young gives you that belief and that hope that they could achieve it. Now, there's no guarantees. You could, get hosed with the seeding again because of the no Sunday play, and then you're suddenly in a 7-10 game and you get a terrible matchup. Like, I get it. But the fact that we're talking about BYU a couple weeks after you lose a coach to Kentucky, and that guy being Mark Pope didn't pull anyone from this program, speaks to what Kevin Young's building. And I love too, Matt, that the consensus around Kevin Young and what he's doing, it goes beyond like, oh, he's just an NBA guy. It's this talk about his character and that he is forming relationships with people that he really didn't have previous relationships with.
No.
Brandon Dunson, there was no relationship there. Chris Burgess, they haven't really worked together. Dallin Hall, Richie Saunders, and this guy gets people to be inspired. That is promising to me going forward with the future of this program.
And to be fair, he had very little relationship with Brian Santiago and Tom Holmoe prior to getting hired. There was a little exploratory interest back when Coach Pope was interviewed, but that wasn't some long, drawn-out process where at the last second they went with Coach Pope. So, look, Kevin Young even said as much. Yeah, we kept in touch. But that wasn't some blossoming friendship where they were going to Hawaii in the offseason with their families. Like, the fact that he's been able to establish that level of trust and comfort with his bosses, Holmoe and Santiago, with his players, and then with two guys, Brandon Dunson and Chris Burgess, that there was hardly any previous experience with. And that's something that excites me so much about this basketball program, is that it appears that Kevin Young is trying to bring in the best assistant coaches he can, regardless of, did I know you in the G League? Did I know you when I was working with the Sixers or the Suns? I want to keep it tight-knit, like to your point, Mitch, and it's a great point. Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to attract the best. And that is so exciting because when he was hired, I think a lot of our concerns were, okay, this is great. Like, there's a lot of potential here. Can he get guys back? Can he flesh out a staff, a well-rounded staff that can recruit, that has experience with BYU? Check, down the list. It's not even a negative. The only swing and miss he's had is that Colin Chandler decided to commit to Coach Pope the day before he was hired. Yeah. Other than that, he has nailed everything, and there's still more to come with the assistant coaches. It's unbelievable what this basketball program's doing right now.
You kind of wonder, too, when you bring up Colin Chandler, if Pope's camp, and look, this is just kind of thinking, but the coaching, the basketball world, people get wind of stuff in those circles. If Pope got wind and was like, I got to nail this down because this Kevin Young guy could, he's got a resume that could sway Colin Chandler. Now, Chandler loves Mark Pope.
Yep.
That family loved Mark Pope, and
he's got NBA dreams. And
he's moved
Kentucky
on. He's
is
back,
a great path to the NBA.
He's back from the mission. He's going to Kentucky. That's moved on. But yeah, Kevin Young, because most NBA guys that come to college basketball, they fail in college basketball because they don't get a good staff. They don't have a good support system around them. I love that Kevin Young brought in a guy in Chris Burgess that does have BYU experience, because I think that can help both Kevin Young, the other assistants, Doug Stewart, the chief of staff, and Dunson, to say, like, this is not uncommon, this red tape we're dealing with, or this sort of, like, kind of getting no's. Because I got to imagine that, on the recruiting trail, you're going to get some guys that just say, yeah, I'm not interested in being at BYU. Sorry, but not interested. Whereas Burgess can say, like, this is not uncommon, guys. We're going to be okay. And And Burgess also can just simply relate to those LDS athletes because he's them. He was a number one recruit coming out of high school, LDS, strong member of the faith. And I think that's something he can connect with. He had a great connection with Dallin Hall on the recruiting trail. So I just think there's a lot to like about BYU basketball right now. And, man, I just think that, this team's got a lot of potential. And I love that, Richie Saunders and Dallin Hall bought into this crew because if you didn't have them, I don't know if there'd be as much excitement.
There wouldn't be. There's no way.
But getting them, though, and then you put it on all the staff, it's exciting times for BYU basketball, and it leads you to feeling like this program can do things that they've never done before.
There's never been a more optimistic time, I feel like, in the history of BYU hoops. It just feels like the sky's the limit right now. Dallin Hall joined JJ and Alex on the KSL Sports Zone yesterday. Here was the BYU starting point guard's thoughts on getting Chris Burgess back in blue.
Burgess is my guy. Like, he recruited me since I was a freshman in high school. I just love the way he treats others. He carries himself. He's a phenomenal recruiter. He's an incredible coach. I think it's a huge addition to our staff. And Coach Young seems to be, putting together a super staff. So it's like the Avengers of a staff for basketball. So we're super excited.
It certainly feels that way. That was well said by Dallin Hall because I just never would have dreamed. My first reaction to Kevin Young being hired was just insanely excited. I can't remember being as excited for a hire in quite some time just because it never felt possible that they would get someone from the NBA. But then after that, my first thought was, well, okay, he's got to build a staff of Burgess coming. To not get this job, why? He didn't play for BYU. Mm-hmm. His alma mater was Utah. He just left his alma mater to go back to BYU. Look, it's well documented kind of how nasty it was back in his playing days. That look, the Roger Reed story. Mm-hmm. It's well documented. So to get him back, as Dallin Hall just said, it's a incredible hire. It's something that should not be lost from this hire too, Mitch. There is not a single person in this state that has had more experience recruiting this state in the last 10 years than Chris Burgess.
No question.
Not a single one. So you just added the most plugged in, longest tenured, best recruiter of the state of Utah to your staff. That is enormous. This state has produced great talent. Colin Chandler came from this state. He's going to Kentucky. Frank Jackson, once upon a time, came from this state, played in the NBA, went to Duke. If you can cultivate and gather more in-state talent, you're going to be knocking out the door of the tournament every single year just by keeping your own in-house and to have the best, most qualified person to recruit this state on your staff. That's big time, Mitch.
And I love that Kevin Young is putting together a staff that is going to recruit heavily in high school recruiting. I know the transfer portal has got to be a key piece, but I believe we will see eventually a shift once we get rid of the COVID players that are still kind of looking for that NIL payday that they didn't get as a high school player. We're going to see a shift where it's going to focus more on retention. It's going to happen. And you got to have some real boots on the ground connections with the high school recruiting scene. Dunson, Burgess, they've got that. Kevin Young's going to enhance his relationships, and naturally that's going to grow, but that's an area he's got to work on. But ultimately, as the head coach, I don't need the head coach to be boots on the ground in these high school gyms all the time. To close the deal, sure. But I want Burgess, I want, Dunson. They're working the phones. They're at these gyms in the summertime in July at the Peach Jam, all that stuff. They're identifying guys. And Kevin Young, he's got a brother that knows all the great high school players. I mean, Justin Young was someone that he was in the game in Rivals.com back in the day when it was like O.J. Mayo coming through the ranks. He knows great high school talent. So Kevin Young's got an incredible resource to work with. I just love what's happening for BYU basketball. And I do feel like they are going to, they're going to use the portal to supplement the roster, but it's not going to just be solely portal. It's going to be getting guys that want to be program guys, and hopefully they can keep them with the resources that are being committed to this program.
Well, your key word there, Mitch, is supplement, right? The transfer portal should be the dessert at a restaurant.
Yes.
Some of my favorite restaurants, look, I love Walters right around the street. They have a phenomenal just a great lemon gelato. But I don't go for that. I go for the main dish. And I feel like that's what college basketball recruiting needs to be, to your point. Build through the high school ranks, cultivate and develop that talent, supplement with the transfer portal to fill in the pieces like we've seen last year and probably this year. But this year's team is not going to be built on the portal. It's just you're bringing back a lot of guys, and you just add a couple pieces to it.
And BYU is a place that actually can retain athletes because there is that draw for star athletes to want to be BYU guys. And we'll talk about that, one of those guys, next. We'll have more sound from Dallin Hall as he shares his thoughts on BYU basketball and his return to run it back for another season with the Cougars. It's Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSL Sports. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte, coming to you live from downtown Salt Lake City. Beautiful day this afternoon here in Salt Lake. And, man, it's a beautiful time for BYU basketball. You're going to hear from Brandon Dunson coming up in about 10 minutes, one of the new assistant coaches in the BYU basketball program. But I think Cougar Nation is just pumped, Matt, for Dallin Hall, his return, announcing he's going to run it back.
What was his rating in the portal? He was like a high 90 or something?
Well, Evan Maya, one of those kind of Ken Palm type guys, he rated him a 5-star.
Wow.
24/7 Sports rated Dallin Hall high-end 4-star, like top 50 transfer guy. So you're talking about a big-time addition and a guy that had probably maybe bigger offers to other places, but he's like, I want to be part of Kevin Young and what he's doing. And it's pretty exciting to hear, and Dallin Hall broke it down on JJ and Alex, our sibling station on the KSL Sports Zone, and he went into that decision to enter the portal, but ultimately return to BYU.
I mean, as you guys know, a head coach is a huge part of your decision on where you're going to go play. And so at the time I jumped in the portal, Coach Young there was no coach at BYU. And so I didn't know who it was going to be. And myself and my family talked, and we felt it'd be best to kind of weigh out my options because I've loved BYU. I've been treated incredibly well here by the community, by the fans, academically as well, and they've helped me a ton. And so I feel like I've grown a ton here, and I have goals and ambitions to play basketball in the NBA and at the next level. And so I decided to jump in the portal and kind of weigh out what would be the best move going forward for me in terms of finding the right fit, the right coach who really believes in me and has a system that I think is going to let me play my game and help my teammates perform. And those were kind of big things that I was looking for. And then when Coach Young got the job, he reached out to me pretty quickly and let me know that they really wanted me back. And through a series of conversations, we were able to kind of talk about game plan, how he envisions using me this upcoming season, and just overall I felt like I could really trust him and what he says. He's a man of integrity. It seems like he really carries himself well, and his basketball mind is off the charts. I mean, obviously he was a top coach in the NBA. So all of those things factoring together, his connections for the NBA, after a lot of prayer and some visits and talking to my family, I felt like I would be able to still accomplish all those goals that I mentioned, but also have, this great BYU experience that I've had the past 2 years.
Man, good stuff there from Dallin Hall as he was with JJ and Alex yesterday on the KSL Sports Zone. Their show is every single Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 p.m. actually on the KSL Sports Zone. I don't even know where to begin with that. There is so much juicy.
Lots to unpack.
Let me say this really quick. He mentioned the integrity of Kevin Young. After he got hired, I did like a little deep dive, and I found this story that Kevin Young told back when he worked with the Sixers. And this to me just highlights that integrity and that authenticity that is clearly on display with the hires of the staff up to this point and the players he's returned. He was coaching in Michigan when he was with Delaware, and his wife had told him, hey, all of the kids up to that point are like sick. I'd love to get you home. And like a flight got canceled. And he was like, I really got to get home. Like, I got to help my wife. So we rented a car and drove all through the night to get home rather than stay in the hotel an extra day and get home when you get home. And that's like a little thing, but that really impressed me that he cared that much about helping his wife. Look, we got little kids.
Yes.
It's not fun when your kids are sick. It is hard. It's hard when they're not sick. And when they're sick, it's even harder. And for him to have went to that length to get home to help his wife at that point in his career, I think it's safe. The dude is of high character and high integrity.
And that was critical for Dallin Hall. And to get Dallin Hall back to BYU, it inspires a lot of excitement. And it gave a validation that says, this Kevin Young, he's probably going to work out quite nicely for BYU basketball. We're taking another break, news, traffic, and weather. And then on the other side, one of Kevin Young's assistant coaches, Brandon Dunson. You'll hear from him next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into KSL Sports, KSL News Radio. New era in BYU basketball as Kevin Young leads the program, and he's assembling his coaching staff, and the first hire on that staff is assistant coach Brandon Dunson, who joins me now. And, Coach, welcome to the show, and welcome to BYU.
No, I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be a part of this.
So tell us, how did you connect with Kevin Young? Was there a previous relationship before you got hired with BYU?
Well, it's actually funny. So I guess it's been 3 weeks ago now when he got hired. Me and Kevin Young had never had one conversation. He called me the day he got hired. I was actually finalizing a deal with another university that Thursday. So he got hired on that Tuesday, calls me. I go down to Phoenix that night, and then we meet the next morning and stayed in contact for a little bit. And that's kind of how it went down. But we've got a lot of mutual friends. We worked together with some of the same guys when he was at the Suns and I was at some of my stops. I'm very close with one of his brothers, and so there was just a lot of mutual friends and coworkers, and getting to know each other, and everything checked out on his end, checked out on my end. And really, when I got to sit down with him, that was the big thing, and just seeing his vision, the type of person he is, how he wants to run the program, and then obviously knowing the university and the values of the university and what it stands for. It just felt like it was perfectly aligned for me.
And what were kind of the key aspects of that vision that appealed to you?
He obviously wants to win championships and build to win championships and develop pros, which we've both had a part of doing in the past. And but the way he wants to do it the right way, the right type of people. He's not a win at all costs by any means. That's not who he is. He wants to do it the right way, do it with integrity, and he's very humble in the way he comes about things. And since I've known him now for the last 3 weeks, he's the same guy every single time. Like you get one version of Kevin, and it's just very, very encouraging that he's been so successful and done it with such humility and such integrity. And so that's something I wanted to be a part of.
Talk with Brandon Dunson, BYU basketball assistant coach here on KSL. And over these past few weeks, Coach Young has juggled 2 jobs. Now it's all systems go for BYU now that his work with the Suns is in the rearview mirror. But how kind of hectic for both you and him and the communication, as you two are the only official titles on the staff. How crazy has it been these past few weeks?
Yeah, it's honestly been a lot. And I mean, we have multiple calls at midnight and 1 a.m. trying to make things work. And a credit to him. Like for me, I've been just locked in on BYU and trying to do what I can do from a recruiting standpoint, from just a development standpoint, and doing all that obviously while I'm transitioning with the move and everything. But I mean, he's put so much into it, and I would tell you he's probably averaging 4 hours of sleep because he has been. I mean, literally, they were in game 2, and I think it was 13 minutes before tip-off, and he's texting me about a kid. And I literally text him back and say, KY, worry about winning the game. We can talk about this later. But he's been so invested both ways. But it definitely has been hectic, and it'll be good to be able to get some fluidity with what we're doing and be able to get into the offices with each other every day so we can sit face to face and handle a lot of these things.
Were you there in Phoenix for Game 3? And if so, how was that experience?
Yep. I was there with the guys. It was amazing, and the guys got to see him work book out on the floor, and then it was a great game. Obviously, the fourth quarter kind of derailed it for the Suns, but no, it was a very special deal, and to see all the guys there, and it's crazy because it was actually my first time meeting the guys formally. So that was it was fun.
Talk with Brandon Dunson here on KSL. And Coach, I'm curious, what got you into college coaching after your playing career in college basketball? What was it about coaching that appealed to you?
Yeah, big thing for the coaching. It's crazy because I've never wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a sports agent, actually. Coming out of college, I played a little bit of pro ball and tore my shoulder up, and that kind of put me into a different lane. And then when I got into the sports agency world, I was in it for about 8 months. It just didn't feel like I was helping anybody. And while I love basketball, my passion is to help. And so I was offered a coaching job, a small college coaching job, assistant position in Phoenix, and took that and just kind of fell in love with it from there. So that's kind of what got me in the game, and I really haven't looked back.
You know, when you bring up that you had an interest in being an agent potentially, it kind of gets me thinking, is it gotten to a point in basketball now as in coaching where there's kind of some traits maybe that are agent-like in a way when it comes to recruiting and bringing in players, because it's just such a unique time in the profession right now?
For sure. There's no doubt about that. But that's also one of the unique things about BYU. And it was similar when I was at Stanford. Different reasons, but similar type of culture of when you go to BYU, you're not going there solely for basketball. Like a lot of the schools that you go to, it's a business deal. Like I go for basketball 1 year, see what I can make, try to get more money the next year, and so forth. BYU, you're coming for a lot more than that. Your values, obviously religion and those type things, and you're tied to something greater than just a basketball team, or even just greater than just an education. You're with a network of people who care about you, and it's a special group, which is why you see the following that they have, and they've had throughout the years. And so that was something that was really intriguing to me, knowing that you'd be able to have some roster retention as well, because, again, it's not just basketball when you choose BYU.
Do you think, though, that BYU is a place, by being in the Big 12, that it, despite maybe the uniqueness of the place, that it can still be a place that can land some heralded recruits? Because and I bring that up because your background showcases, like, you have signed some of the best prospects in the country the past few years. Do you think this place can do that as well?
No doubt. I definitely think it can, and I think you got to have the right pieces. And it was similar comparing it to Stanford, is very similar. Like that Stanford was a tough place to get into. You had to have a lot of different academic things that most kids didn't want to do. But if you find the right fit, that can definitely happen. I have no doubt that we'll be able to do that here.
What do you know about the atmosphere of the Marriott Center? What have you heard about it? Do you know anything about really BYU basketball other than what you've learned maybe these past few weeks? Yeah, well, it's funny. So my first coaching job, I mentioned, it was at an NAIA school in Phoenix, Arizona Christian University. So my last year there, in my third year, we actually came to BYU and played. And it was an exhibition game, and there was at least 15,000 people there. It was insane. And we were actually tied at half with them, and I believe they were a top 25 team at that point, or top 30 team. And we went in there and we're like, yeah, we're taking the crowd out of it. And the second half, I remember Jake Toulson just hit maybe 2 or 3 threes in a row, and the roof blew off the place, and we ended up losing by like 25. So no, I've seen it in person, and then obviously have watched it throughout the years, and there's no doubt that it's I've always known that it's a top 2 or 3 atmosphere here on the West Coast, up with the likes of the Arizona, San Diego State, Gonzaga, BYU. Those are the 4 teams on the West Coast that I think about when I think about elite atmospheres.
So I'm super, super excited about that, and looking forward to giving the fan base something they can enjoy.
Yeah, BYU Arizona Christian 2015. I see 103-75. Yeah, it was tight. It was right there. So it was a close game. Last thing for you, Coach, and I'll let you go because I know you're a busy man with everything that's going on. Kind of what's the next steps here for now that Coach Young is kind of all in on BYU? He'll have Big 12 spring meetings this week, and then what's kind of the next things for this group and the players and the staff and for you going forward here?
Yep, I think a few things simultaneously. I think Coach Young specifically has done a great job of retention and putting his time where it needs to be and showing them, the guys who were in the portal, how much he values them. And I tell people all the time, as coaches, there's NIL, there's this, there's that. There's still one thing that's the most valuable resource to us that none of us have mastered yet. I don't know if we ever will, and that's your time. And he was able to spend a lot of time with those guys and show them how much that he valued them. So I think that was number one, getting that in the fold. That was the most important thing. So moving forward, we've got to continue to put a staff together. We've got to continue to put a roster together. We've got some kind of know what we want to do from a style of play wise and what we're missing from a roster spot, and how we want to attack that. So we've been actively doing that, and then getting everybody there and putting a development plan together for each individual guy in the spring, and just kind of working through that, and then obviously going into the 2025 recruiting class as well.
I know I said that was the last question. I got one more. Have you settled into like your offices in Provo at all, or has it just been all traveling and going everywhere you can for recruiting?
Not at all. It's been just about. I've been probably in 5 cities in the last couple of days. Like I haven't even picked my office out. I've actually been to the office one time. From there, everything's been remote. So I'm hoping to finish some loose ends early this week and get there full time, physically there full time, starting at the end of the week.
Well, he's Coach Brandon Dunson, newest member of the BYU basketball coaching staff. Coach, exciting for this new era and looking forward to covering this program, and best of luck on putting together this roster with Coach Young.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it as well.
That's Brandon Dunson, BYU basketball assistant coach, taking a break. We'll talk more Cougar hoops on the other side. Is BYU a basketball school now? We'll ask that question next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Good stuff from Brandon Dunson. He's just not the newest member of the staff anymore.
Nope.
Things happen fast. Things are happening so fast at BYU hoops. I feel like that GIF where that kid is like woozy, and you go, oh, it's just
in
like
the red shirt.
Yeah, it's Brandon Dunson. It's Chris Burgess. There's a new title, Doug Stewart. Oh, what's happening? It's so exciting, though, and it makes you wonder. I'm curious, too. For those of you listening, you can text us 57500. Great way to interact with the show. Is BYU becoming a basketball school first over football? And also, I'm curious, too, Cougar Nation, at 57500. Which team are you more excited for in this upcoming athletic year? Football, which comes sooner than hoops, or has all this positivity with Kevin Young and the staff and returning players? Are you more excited for basketball this upcoming season? What are your thoughts on those two questions, Mitch?
I feel like for the second question, I would say that the fan base is probably more excited for hoops.
Yeah,
I would say that. I do believe that because
how could you not? You're fresh off a tournament. You're bringing back so many players,
and also I think it helps too that you know me where I'm going to go. The Big 12 is an amazing league. It's the best league, and to be a factor in the best league in college hoops, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that is a really cool place to be for BYU, and there's just so much new. Yet, despite all the new on the staff, the personnel is the same. Like you have connections to those players. You know, at Kentucky with Mark Pope right now, yeah, he's getting a roster together, but no one's got connections to him in that program. And I know Kentucky fans will probably be all enamored with it and whatever, but BYU fans, they've got connections with Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders. They've given those guys standing ovations in the Marriott Center. Those are their guys. Like, I can just see it from my kids. I'll tell you too. Like my oldest son, he's BYU basketball first. Like that's
wow, really?
Yes, and he loves BYU football. Like I think he plays basketball, and I think he enjoys watching basketball. And I do think that there's the younger audience with attention spans. I think it skews younger that the basketball is BYU basketball would probably be first. I think for younger sports fans for BYU.
Much shorter game, faster pace, more scoring.
You can kind of get in and out. You can get to the game at 6:45, and then you're out at 9. It's not your whole day. And look, that's deep in the weeds type conversation with that. But I do think that there is a growing segment of BYU fandom that puts basketball first. Football, I think, is still the king.
Yeah, for sure.
But, man, I think that there is the last 15 or so years, you have seen more and more people really attach themselves to, like, the fandom of BYU basketball.
The issue with BYU football this year is there's not a lot of individual brands that get you excited. And look, that could very well change. Like, football could have a good year. Someone like Jake Retzlaff or L.J. Martin, there's a lot of candidates for someone who could explode, be the face of the program. You're all in. You exceed expectations. Optimism is returned, right? But last year, you don't go to a bowl game. Your first year in the Big 12, you have a couple of heartbreaking losses. And then you look at the roster this year, and there are some good players, but Jake Retzlaff hasn't won a football game at BYU. He might be your starting quarterback. If he's not, you're bringing in a guy who's off an injury and hasn't played in a long time. You got a sophomore running back who had moments last year, but he was not a 1,500-yard rusher. It's not the kid from Oklahoma State, Gordon, coming back, where you're like, this is the man,
Yes.
This is the program. That's not what you have at running back, and I hope it becomes that, but that's not what it is. At wide receiver, you got a lot of production there, where there's not a 1,000-yard receiver in the group. Tight end, there's hardly anyone who's played. It's like, so across the board, there's just not that name recognition where for a lot of Kalani's tenure, Mitch, there has been. His first year, it was Taysom Hill. It was Jamal Williams. Right after that, it was Tanner Mangum. That didn't work out, but there was tremendous brand recognition there with Tanner. And look, that led to Zach, and Zach got some run at the end of 17. That led into 18. That led into 19, 20. There was Zach Heisman conversation. But in the background, there was always Jaron Hall. So even next year with Jaron Hall, look, that was his first year starting, but there was already hype and interest in Jaron. So this is like really the first year of football where there's just like, there's not a guy that you're just stoked. And look, hoops, good for them. They are seizing on the opportunity in this fan base.
Yeah, you ask simply, like, who's the Dallin Hall of BYU football? And it's just
Tyler Batty, probably.
Yeah, Tyler Batty, but still, Tyler Batty, his resume, it's got to get better. You got to get to 10 sacks. You get to get up there in double-digit sacks. And, so I think I think it's also hard for just a fan that just, watches the game, loves the team, to really analyze defensive end. It hits a little bit different when your stars are QB, wide receiver, running
fair
back.
or not fair, and it's probably not fair. That's just the way that it is.
Right. And, look, for the deep, football minds, defensive end is critical. Yeah. Offensive tackle is critical. But it's not sexy to promote unless the DN's getting tons of sacks. So it's not.
Right.
It's
and even
not,
then, think of like a J.J. Watt in the NFL. He was a big name, but he was never the name in the NFL.
You just don't have that star power on the offensive side at all. I think that Chase Roberts has got star potential, but last year 573 in receiving yards, and you go, is it going to go up this year? There's uncertainty at quarterback, and we'll talk coming up in hour number 3 with one of those new quarterbacks, McKay Hillstead, Utah State quarterback who transfers into BYU coming up a little bit later this month, and he is a fascinating prospect for BYU. But, yeah, I think that ultimately, though, you do want BYU to still be a football school because in the upcoming era of revenue sharing, which I think is sooner rather than later, and that's a whole mind-twisting, bending thing that we need hours to lay out here on the show. But football is king in college sports still, and it's at the core of what BYU truly is. I still think they are the king of the branding for fans. But man, basketball's inspired some real excitement right now.
You'd love for both programs to be in the mix and there's very few that do, right? But Alabama right now, both of those programs are at the top of their games. And look, there's a lot of other schools. You'd love to have them both, but you got to have someone, right? And I think that's that's what's nice about hoops and the success they're having and all the optimism is that, let's say football doesn't bounce back, and look, we want them to. Don't get me wrong. We're rooting for that to happen. But if they don't, it's nice to have a fallback that the second most visible athletic team is a ascending asset to the university, and that's a good problem to have, Mitch. Let's take the break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way. Do not turn that dial. Speaking of football, Kalani Sitake sat down with Mitch Harper a few days ago. We'll have that conversation right after this.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into KSL News Radio and KSL Sports. BYU football. It might be May, but it's not far away. BYU football will be back for the 2024 season, year 2 in the Big 12 Conference. And joining me now is BYU head coach, heading into his 9th season with the program. He is Kalani Sitake. And Kalani, it's been an eventful week for you. You had Big 12 coaches meetings down in Scottsdale, Arizona. What was kind of the tone and maybe tenor of those meetings down there in Scottsdale?
I think the biggest focus was on the calendar and what's going to happen next year. Also, just some things that they're going to vote on it with the NCAA. So we'll see how that all goes in the next little bit. But it's more than anything, it allows us to know how to plan as head coaches going into the season, going into the our fall camp coming up in August, and that's right around the corner. So it was good, and it was also good to connect with the other head coaches in the conference. So all of them were there. It was great to interact with every one of them. Dion and the rest of the group, Kyle,
Coach Prime and Kyle.
Yeah, so it's like guys that I know, and I can tell you this conference has amazing head coaches, and I'm just honored to be in the room with them. But to listen to them and as we speak and collaborate about different things about the conference and with Commissioner Brett Yormark, I mean, I think there's some really cool things coming up, and I'm excited to be part of it. And a lot of times I'm just sitting there going, I can't believe, as a BYU fan, I'm sitting in this room. You know what I mean? And so obviously there's some things that I can't mention that will come out in terms of what we're trying to do as a conference and what we're trying to do with our relationship with ESPN and Fox and all those things. So, but the future is really bright, and we're looking forward to competing in the Big 12. And after the first year, we feel like we're in a good spot now in terms of getting our team ready, and they know what to look for now. So it's not a surprise anymore, and they know what to expect. And I'm looking forward to our guys performing and getting the best out of our guys and seeing what happens.
And you bring up that guys know what to expect, and that's been a theme this offseason is you feel like that there can be a lot of growth, and you look at this roster in a world where so many teams are flipping the roster because of transfer portal. You've had the ability to retain this roster for the most part. There's been some movement, sure, but it's been a retained roster. What areas of growth do you feel like you're seeing from these players that experienced last year the ups and downs and are back, and maybe the resolve from this group?
Well, I think when me and Jay and A-Rod have been saying the entire time, hey, guys, get ready. This is nothing like you've seen. I think just going through the experience, you can talk about all you want, but when you actually go through the experience, now you know what to expect. It's like being a father for the first time. You can read all the books, you can prep through it. I could even tell you, hey, as a father myself, this is going to be really cool, but there's going to be some things you got to look out for. Until they go through it, they don't know, right? And so now they know, and so we're in a position now where they do know. They understand where we're coming from. They've been through the fight of it all, the grind of the Big 12 conference, and now I think with the result of what we had, the 5-7 year didn't sit well with anybody, But the urgency from the players to get back at it and to work. I mean, this was one of our best springs we've ever had. And it was also one of our best off-season conditioning in January and February. So let's build off that momentum. I thought we had some great competition in spring. Last year we had to we had to create an opportunity to bring in a lot of talent because we needed more depth. This year we were able to retain a lot of the talent and develop them, and that we're still bringing in some new talent that I think fits into the schemes and into the system right away, I think we're going to be in a way better spot. Now, we still have to go out there and play the games, and they're going to be difficult, and there's some new ones out there. And that means starts off the first 3 games, 2 on the road, so for non-conference. So we got to get used to that, and I think the guys will be ready, though.
For yourself individually, where do you feel like maybe you learned self-evaluation from your experience as a head coach in a power conference? Where do you feel like you've grown?
Yeah, I think I'm still learning, right? But I think for me, the main thing is we have an unbelievable fan base, and we could definitely count on them. That happens on the road and at home. And so what that's allowed me to do is actually go out and spend some time with the fans and interact with them, but ask them for help in terms of what we can do with the team and generate momentum. You can see the excitement that's going on with basketball and everything that's going on into the department. I think we just keep building off of that. For me, also as a head coach, is that there's this conference has great head coaches. I mean, the teams are well coached. There's not going to be an easy where you feel like, okay, we can get ahead on this situation because we have a better talent. Our talent will overcome everything. It now is like you have to have everything under control because the other side, those guys are well coached, and so you're not going to get. There's no easy games here, and so even the newcomers that are coming into the Big 12 will have to adjust to that.
Last couple things here for you, Kalani. I do want to ask about the quarterback situation with Gary Bohannon, Jake Retzlaff going to lead the way coming out of spring. What maybe gives you optimism that maybe people on the outside don't realize about this quarterback unit that you came out of spring feeling like this could be a better group than maybe people think?
Well, I think the best thing that happened to Jake was Gary coming here, and then also getting Trayson here, and the competition and seeing the guys just kind of get after it. And then I think the quarterback room is getting better and better. I mean, we have amazing talent in there. They have to compete against each other, and we have to play the best. That's just how it works. And as you develop your 1, 2, 3s, and 4s with the quarterback position, the best will win it out. And right now, we felt like it was a good spring for those two to compete. What we saw is guys like Trayson elevate his game. And so what we need to do now is kind of give him an opportunity to compete again in fall camp and see who our number 1 guy will be. But it does help to have talented 2 and talented 3 and talented 4 and 5. So that needs to happen too, because you never know. We've had you have to just prepare for the worst. We've had some horrible tragedies where we need to go to our 3rd and 4th quarterback, and the systems should be in place that if we do that, we need to expect wins still.
This fall will be the 100th season of BYU football, and I know this program's meant a lot to you throughout the years. Even when you were a kid, you've always stated that you were a fan when you grew up. You've played a big role in the history of this program to date. Are you still having? I guess how excited are you to just continue to add to the history of the program and what it still means to you to be coaching here at your alma mater?
Well, it means everything to me. I've had, like I said, I don't take it for granted at all. So I have this high level of appreciation and gratitude of the seat that I sit in, and the things I get to do, and the people that I get to interact with, and that's from the people on campus, the people like yourself, Mitch, and people that are involved with BYU football, but the players especially, and the fans especially. I mean, I am a fan, so that's where. Imagine if you as a fan get to be in my seat and call the shots, and so I'm trying to do right by all of them, and by doing that, I still have to keep this appreciation, gratitude. And the moment I don't have that is the moment I shouldn't be the coach. But I feel like every year it just gets – I just keep adding more and more appreciation and excitement. I just want to win. I just want to do so many great things for the fans and for the players and for the entire community, because I think it would be really cool. I mean, having successful teams come through, like the 1984 team come through, seeing the closeness and the camaraderie with that group, and being sitting next to Patty Edwards and seeing her just be excited to see the boys again. This is a really cool thing, man, and being able to do it with the gospel in mind and talk about our Savior Jesus Christ, and talk about the church and the influence it can have in people's lives, and that's just It's the only place you can do that in college football. And so I'm really honored and happy to be a part of it.
Last thing for you, just we'll reconvene in the end of June with a media golf tournament at Cedar Valley. But what's kind of the
Watch out for that one.
Yes,
my golf game is not that great right now, Mitch. I don't know how yours is, but
it's not good. But what's the schedule look like for you in May and in June? And because I got to imagine it's tough as a coach to maybe want to have a little bit of downtime, but then always have that mental block of, are other coaches doing more, and just that grind. So what does May and June look like for you?
Yeah, so in May we'll have I got weddings to go to this month, but the ones that I can get to. But we'll have recruiting with the spring recruiting with the assistants. Myself, I'll be doing. We'll have, because of the official visits, we'll have people here on visits from now until the end of June, and so that's just part of the business now. And so we'll be around, but I have coaches summits, I have meetings, there's firesides, all these things to be doing. I love it all, but it's a lot of fun. In June we'll get to some more of that, but it'll be official visits and camps, and then in July that's the time off for all the coaches and the staff, and then we start again at the end of July, which is the fall camp starts, I think, July 31st. And away we go, and then the season will be right here. So it's right around the corner. I'm excited for it, and man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I feel really confident and really good about our team right now, but I don't really want to talk about it. I just want people to see it when it happens.
Well, always appreciate the time, Kalani, and we'll be following it, and we'll see you later this summer then.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Go Cougs.
Welcome back in, Cougar Sports Saturday. Thanks for being with us. Gosh, it's been a loaded show so far, and it keeps going. Right now, let's get to a little BYU football with McKay Hillstead. He's going to be joining us here in a little bit. Good conversation we had with McKay Hillstead early in the week. We'll play the interview for you at 2:00, so about a half an hour from now. How realistic, Mitch, do you think it is that he could be a day one starting quarterback for BYU? Do you think there's any shot that could happen?
I feel like that's hard for day one, because what the risk with something like that for a guy like McKay Hillstead, who's going to be officially joining the team later this month, you could lose a locker room if you went with him day one.
But what if he clearly displays through practice that he's the best quarterback? Does that still break the locker room?
It's tough to say. I just feel like I don't get this strong feeling that the locker room is swaying one direction to one guy, and that's what kind of makes this quarterback debate so interesting with BYU. Is I feel like if I had to get a feel for what that locker room would say, if I had to assume or project, I feel like they would probably say Retzlaff.
Yeah,
because they were in the battles with him last year, and they faced the adversity together with him. If Hillstead was just lights out, way better than everyone, I feel like people could let that go to the side because they want to win, but there'd probably be that feeling of they want their guy or their buddy to be calling the shots, and this guy just steps in and takes the job. It's tough. That would be – there's no kind of set precedent for that either when it comes to BYU. Like Jaron Hall arrived in May in 2019. What was it, 2018? And he didn't even give a sniff at that number one job in 2018. It was Zach Wilson and then Tanner Manga before that. I struggle to think of a guy that's never led a team for an entire year winning the job week one. This is not like Russell Wilson. Remember years ago when he left NC State, went to Wisconsin in like the middle of May? It's like, that's Russell Wilson. He's an all-ACC guy. He's going to step into Wisconsin and just be a stud from the get-go. McKay Hillstead's very good, but he doesn't have like a resume that says he arrives on campus, he's the dude, he's going to become the dude. But BYU's quarterback situation is so kind of open that it leaves that possibility. But I would say it feels far-fetched right now at this juncture.
I would agree. I think that the thing that's hard too is, for better or for worse, there's always a little political play with some of these decisions. And I have to wonder with Aaron Roderick, it's in his best interest that Jake Retzlaff works. He went out and got him. he was an under-the-radar project. I think there's always a little bit of extra leash in those situations where, as a coach, you want to say, no one was looking at this dude. I brought him in. Look what he became. There was a little bit with that with Zach. I know that Zach had the Iowa offer, right? But he was, one would say, under-recruited and developed, and that was a huge feather in the cap for Aaron Roderick to get him to be the number 2 overall pick. I believe there's a little bit there with Retzlaff in that regard, and that's not a negative. That's human nature, where Roderick chose not to recruit McKay Hillstead out of high school. So he passed on him once, and credit on him for bringing him in, and let's see what happens there. But there is every indication from what I've seen in spring football that you want Jake Retzlaff to be the quarterback. You already put all that time and effort into him last year. You want that to develop this year in a perfect world, Mitch. And we don't live in a perfect world in college athletics anymore, but Retzlaff is good this year. You get to a bowl game, you come back next year, maybe you improve upon that. Hillstead's got a red shirt available. You use one of those, and then he becomes the next guy for a couple of years. That's what you want to have happen. Might be hard in the NIL and transfer portal era to keep someone that long on the bench. Who knows? That's a perfect scenario. But the one thing that I would say that is the door is open for a Hillstead in that Retzlaff has never looked great in practice. I think Retzlaff's got a little bit of, he's more of a gamer. When the lights are on, he comes alive. That's like, this is not Jake Heaps, all right? We were there when Jake when Jake Heaps he was the apple of the eye in practice. Yep. It was, these passes, every pass is a spiral. It's on point. Didn't translate though, right? It's the reverse with Retzlaff, where he makes some dazzling plays, he misses some easy throws, but then on game days there was a lot to like. So it's going to be a fascinating battle in the fall. And bringing Hillstead into the mix was the right decision to have another option. And
it's so interesting that there's no homegrown BYU guy out of high school.
You're
in
right.
The top 4. None of them.
None.
There are JUCO, grad transfer, D1 transfers. It's very unusual, and it's ideally for BYU, this does not become the norm. And I know that transfers have hit a lot, and they've won even Heisman's, Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow. But to me, at BYU, you got to develop homegrown talent. It's hard to get guys to be patient, and because look, in that scenario laid out, my thought was, well, what if McKay Hillstead said, you know what, this wasn't for me. I'm in the portal again in December. It's just like that could be a thing now. So it's so difficult. Who's willing to be patient? Who's willing to actually see it through? Because the guys that did see it through, last one being Jaron Hall, he got to the league. So there is a little bit of a precedent. If you do wait, if you are a little patient, it will work out for you here at BYU, and you put in that time. And I think there's that feeling of Jake Retzlaff was willing to be patient, be behind Slovis. He will get rewarded because I think he did enough in spring that feels like, okay, you didn't turn the ball over ever. You didn't throw. He was
good in spring. I don't want to paint a picture that he was bad. It's just he doesn't wow you like some others did. Jaron Hall wowed us in spring.
You came away from Jaron Hall in 2021 said, this guy can continue the success you had in 2020. With Jake Retzlaff, you feel like, okay, there might be enough there to get to a bowl game. That's a different bar, you know? And it's like when the bar is you might be good enough to get to a bowl game, it leaves the door open for a McKay Hillstead. If he gives you that feeling he could deliver a 9-win season, you're going to entertain that thought. Let's take a break. On the other side, the top 5 here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Hope all of you are having a fantastic Saturday afternoon, midway point of the program. And Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte here in downtown Salt Lake City at Broadcast House. At this juncture of the show, we always roll out our favorite segment of the program, Matt.
The Cougar Sports Saturday Top 5. Mitch and Matt clash in a weekly battle of BYU sports knowledge. Here's the Top 5.
We do this every week. It's a battle of institutional knowledge of BYU. Except for when our producer Nate Slack chooses a list of his own choosing based off his own preference. That's where it gets a little off the. No, I'm kidding, Nate. That's a joke, by the way. But every single week, our producer Nate Slack comes up with a list. Could be factual, could be preferential, and me and Mitch with nothing in front of us, no computers, no Chat GPT, none of that. We're just guessing off the cuff to see who can get 3 correct answers and win for a given week. Nate, glad to have you with us, man.
Yeah, good to be here with you guys. And I think this summer is going to be a lot of fun. We're celebrating the 100 years of BYU football this season, so I think I have a lot of historical topics I can have for the top 5. So
yeah.
We're going to be starting that this week.
Oh, wait, before we get to that, though.
Yeah.
So you put out the first 25 on KSLSports.com.
I did. I'm rolling out the 100 greatest players in BYU football history. Players 100 to 76 got rolled out this week. Coming up on Wednesday, I'll roll out 75 to 51. Been a fun project just to put, almost, I wanted it to be the authority on the best players in BYU football history. Some of it will probably be conjuring up debate. When we roll out the whole list, we'll probably dive into it deeper here on the show. But, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun project to put together.
All right, go ahead, Nate.
So we're not going to be looking at players today, but we are going to be looking at games. And in the 100 years, BYU has played 112 different teams. For today's top 5, you guys are going to have to name the 5 Power 4 teams that BYU has played the most often. So I'm gonna give you guys number 1 is Utah. That's not going to be on the list. So you guys have to basically do teams 2 through 6. So the Power 4 teams that have appeared most on the schedule in BYU's history.
Okay.
And we're going to be starting out with Mitch.
Let's go with Arizona.
Arizona number 2 on the list. So it's 25 games.
So Utah was 1, and then Arizona was next.
I guess number 3. So Arizona's
okay.
technically number 3. Number 2 on this list. 25 games, 12 wins, 12 losses, and then 1 tie.
Good to have Arizona back in the same league as BYU. They were once in the WAC together. And I feel like, I'm very interested to see, the first year in the Big 12 for BYU was a honeymoon as far as fan relationships. When you bring in the Pac-12 schools.
Oh, the fan relationships are gone. There's the 4 Pac-12 teams against the rest.
Yes, it does feel that way, and it feels like the Pac-12 teams will almost like respect some of the other Big 12 teams, but they'll hate BYU.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out, but there's always been some good games against Arizona, and hey, look, it's a fun series for BYU because they always win it. They always beat Arizona, so that's always been nice, especially for Kalani, who 2016, 2018, 2021, all wins. And they were, 3 different venues. So been big wins for BYU.
Let's keep it in the same state, the Sun Devils of Arizona State.
I was going to say, no, it is number 1 on the list.
Oh, boy.
Number 1 on this list, 28 games. There's 8 wins, 20 losses, 0 ties. I was kind of surprised by this one because I remember going up into the 2021 Arizona State game that they hadn't played in a long time. But, yeah, 28 games.
There's a real chance that game has enormous significance at the end of this year. The timing of the game is fabulous. Late November in Arizona. Sign me up. I need to be at that from a weather perspective. But could that be a game that determines bowl eligibility? Maybe for both teams. I think Arizona State's a bad football team, but
Big 12 had to think that, right? If you're going to make Arizona State BYU interesting in 2024, put it in the second to last week where both teams are 5-5, looking for that 6th win to get to the bowl game. I think that was probably the thought of why the Big 12 did that.
Yeah. Interesting, though, that they're that high because in recent years, I'm like, you obviously remember the Tyler Algier punch fumble, but after that, it's been a long time.
Yeah, 1998 before that, and 97 they played, 95, but that's it. The last, quarter, 30 years or so, they had that 2020 game in Tempe that they were going to play, but then they got canceled. So we'll maybe talk about that 2020 team coming up a little bit later. in the program. Someone had a bold take that might be the best team ever. We'll have to
we'll have to chime in on that.
But yes, Arizona State. It'll be fun to see that series back annually. Probably. I mean, at least not like Utah, but it'll probably be every 2-3 out of those 4 years. Probably a lot.
Yeah, tied up at 1. Back to Mitch.
Let's go with the Washington Huskies.
Washington's number 6 on the list. So 11 games.
Yeah, that was a series, Washington, where it's like a lot of games, but yeah.
Let's go with the newest transfer portal, one of the darlings of college basketball, leaving LSU, going to, and this is Haley Van Lith, by the way, going to the Horned Frogs of TCU.
Yep, good pull.
Yeah, the Mountain
Good
West
pull.
days sure helped, but 12 games between BYU and TCU. BYU's 5-7, but good for number 3 on the list.
I desperately wanted that game to be close last year because, like, the memories of those from the Mountain West days were fun games, good games, upsets on the road, and then they just laid a total egg against a mediocre TCU team.
Unreal, that game in Fort Worth. And I honestly left that stadium thinking, oh, TCU's probably going to bounce back. Josh Hoover's the truth. No, they just crushed BYU. They looked like they were superhuman, TCU. They looked like they were ready for the playoff again.
Seriously. I felt that. I'm like, oh, Josh Hoover. Really, it's just another chapter in what's becoming a long book of third-string quarterbacks slicing and dicing BYU. Put him in the Hall of Fame of backups that just wrecked the Cougs.
We had a bunch of those last year because Texas had a backup quarterback.
Oh my!
TCU had the backup quarterback.
Don't even get me started on the Texas quarterback. He didn't even look good. Malik Murphy.
No, and then he transferred out. All right, Matt, this is for your win.
Oh my goodness! This is for the win.
Yeah.
Power 4 teams. I don't know why I feel this way, but it should be my YouTube history, that beat down of Norm Chow from 2008. What about UCLA? Let's go!
That was my next pick.
Number 5 on the list, UCLA. Just sneaking in, they have 12 games, so that beat out Washington by 1.
Oh,
12 games. BYU's 3-9 all time against UCLA. But yeah, that 2008 game, the 59 zip, that's one of my favorite games I've been to.
that was unbelievable. I mean, was that the most perfect game that BYU football has ever played? Just everything went their way. Explosive plays galore. Could do no wrong. Like, can you think of a better start-to-finish performance than that UCLA win in 2008?
The only one that would probably compare is, this is a deep cut, but 1989 against Utah, when the first 7 drives, touchdowns. They were up 49-0 at the half. That's the only other one that you could think of and say it comes close to how it played out. But, yeah, amazing performance.
You got to give the edge to the 89. I mean, it's Utah. When you beat them like that.
And they scored 70, and they probably could have scored like 150 points because they called off the Dogs in the third quarter with Ty. But that UCLA game was, what was it, the first 4 drives?
Yeah. It was, the halftime score was it 49-0?
I think it was 35 zip at halftime.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a blocked field goal as well in the second quarter.
Oh,
and I'll never forget that because the whole place is going, block that kick, and BYU's up by 35 points, and then they block it. And
if there's not a game that
nuts.
just you could point to that just shows you how college football has changed, that was a run-of-the-mill mid-afternoon on the Versus channel that probably got very little run. That would be a featured FS1 game today, UCLA and BYU.
And it was Mountain West versus Pac-10. Now that would be Big 10, Big 12.
Oh, man.
The world has changed a lot in 16 years.
Has changed a lot. There's one more left. Let's see if we can get it. What do you got, Mitch?
One more thing on that UCLA game. That was a wild 3-week stretch because the week before that was the win at Washington.
Yep, 28-27.
Questionable win, though. Was that Jake Locker?
Yeah, they threw it in the air.
Yeah.
And then the week after the UCLA game was against Wyoming. BYU won 44-zip.
Oh,
so
that's right.
Back-to-back weeks, shutouts, just blowout games.
And then Jim Rome, the following, after the Wyoming game, let's bring on my next guest, Bronco Mendenhall, heck of a coach. Just won 103-0 in the last 2 weeks. Unreal. Rack him.
How are you doing at Bronco?
Love that guy.
All right, so the last one. Any guesses?
I've got a guess, but I'll let Mitch try first.
Oregon State.
No, Oregon State.
USC?
So Oregon. One quick note. Oregon State's number 6 on the list. They're tied with Washington. but I wasn't going to count them anyways because they're not technically P4 anymore.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
Wow. USC.
No, USC's not in the top 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
USC, they only played 03, 04.
That was their first series?
Yeah,
Yeah,
was in
Wow.
03.
29 and
Yeah,
21.
kind of crazy.
Oh, I think I have it.
How about,
No.
let's go with maybe Colorado.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Colorado 12 games. BYU's 3-8
Because they
10-1.
played in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference like in the 20s. In like the 30s.
The Buffs.
Yeah, it's crazy too. The last time
Are they going to
Colorado-
be at the laughing stock of the Big 12 next year? Like when Shadur leaves, does Prime leave?
I don't think so. I think Primes wants to be in college football. I do, and I think that Colorado, despite all the craziness last year and them only going 4-8, I do think that they still got better. Like they were an absolute wreck with Sanford that previous year. They're their one-win team. I think they'll be good enough to get to 4 or 5. I thought when Prime took over year 2, they're going to the playoff. That's not happening.
Where did Cormani McLean end up?
He has not ended up anywhere, and that's a name that I feel like BYU should kick the tires on.
Look at what the Google search just pops up immediately.
That BYU picture of Cormani. Yes, that would be to me a summer edition. It's like worth adding just to take a flyer.
I'm not there. If Prime is cutting you because you can't be serious, why would you bring him in?
You know me, I'm a sucker for those stars. Give me that 5-star.
I wasn't even attending his meetings.
I'm like that NFL
he got
GM.
put on blast in front of the team.
I'm that NFL position coach. Like I can fix him. I can fix him. I can get him. I can get the most out of him. Like that's me when I see a 5-star. I can get the most out of him.
He has fallen off. He's going to be choosing between UCF and USF, going back to his roots in Florida.
Jeez, that's tough.
Yeah. When you go to be coached by Prime and he sends you packing, that's not a good look.
The programs clearly are taking your approach. Gus Malzahn is taking my approach. Gus Malzahn's like, I'll fix him.
When you're
I'll fix him.
UCF and USF, you need to take some swings like that.
You do. And if anything, if you're a program like UCF, you just generate headlines. You get your 3 letters into a headline around the league and around college football by landing that dude. And for programs like that, that's almost like half the battle. Just kind of get into the conversation in a slow month of May where people are looking to
listen to
talk
this.
about
This
stuff.
is what you want. This is what Prime told a reporter in September of 2023. What does McLean need? This is a deep tangent that we went on here. What does McLean need to do to play? Prime, quote, study and prepare. Be on time to your meetings. Show up to your meetings. Understand the scheme. Check film. That's not a glowing endorsement.
I can get him to watch film.
Oh, I'm sure you could.
I can get him to watch film. Jarrell can get him to watch film.
Oh, jeez.
One of the best recruiting visits during my time at KSL was when Cormani McLean showed up because it was BYU versus Idaho State. And I'm like, I don't give a rip about this BYU-Idaho State game. I'm going to be just tracking the moves of this 5-star recruit that rolled into town. So everything, the documentation of 5-star Cormani McLean visiting BYU. And that's what BYU fans wanted. They were all about that. I remember the page views on that game, like the Idaho State recap. Like, yeah, I got it. BYU football always gets a great run.
Yep.
But, like, the content, the engagement from the Cormani McLean stuff, yeah.
Oh, boy.
That's the good stuff.
If that didn't scare you off, what about this? In the final 3 games of the season against Arizona, Washington State, and Utah, he was targeted 25 times. Any guesses on how many receptions he gave up in those 3 games?
23.
17.
18. Close. I mean, 23 is so.
I thought it was going to be just epically bad.
Man.
Just
18
epic.
to 25 is
That's
not
bad.
great, though.
Well, I'd still
He's
take
young.
it.
he deserves another chance, but I just don't think I want that to be at BYU.
Well, and that Colorado program will be interesting. I mean, the whole Big 12 is just a bunch of programs that how good will they truly be in this league of no bell cow, blue blood powerhouses? And who's going to emerge to the top? And that's what makes the Big 12 race so exciting this year is that you don't have a Texas and Oklahoma. They're going to suffocate the league. It's all open, man. And I know that many think that Utah's just going to dominate. I disagree there. I think Utah's going to definitely be in the mix. I think they're going to be in that top 3 for sure. But I don't think they're going to just dominate. I think they're going to take some losses, and everyone's going to have some L's in this league. So it should be fun. And it's even better, too, when you know the champion's going to be in the playoff. So much on the line in the Big 12 this season.
Let's keep talking some Big 12 football on the other side. I'm curious, just after spring football, maybe a dark horse contender from you, someone that you think is going to fall off the face of the earth. We'll talk some Big 12 football after this. That was a good top 5. I always love to compliment those lists when I come out victorious.
Good win.
Yeah, that was. It was fun to talk about Big 12 football, though, a little bit, because it's such a unique league, as you touched on last, Mitch. No Oklahoma, no Texas. Who do you think – give us one or two teams that you feel like are in the pole position to win the league. And then after that, maybe we can talk about a couple of dark horses that could sneak up and get into that title game.
I like Kansas a lot. I feel like
with Jeff Grimes.
I do. And I think that Kansas, they've got one of the best coaches in the league with Lance Leipold. I love their backfield with Jalen Daniels coming back at quarterback. BYU fans know him well. No one else in the league last year knows him because he didn't play against anyone else except BYU. Devin Neal at running back.
That was so frustrating, too.
It was. And look, Jason Bean at quarterback for Kansas was really good. He got an NFL opportunity. Oddly enough, he's going to the Colts, where Keaton Slovis is going, too. But I think that Jalen Daniels is a special football player who was the preseason offensive Big 12 Player of the Year last season. And I think with him, Devin Neal, they've also added some depth to that running back position. And also, maybe it's just because we have that knowledge of Grimes. He will get more out of that offensive line. Like, at a minimum, you can question Jeff Grimes' play calling, and fair enough. Like, I'd question it, too, at times. Like, I don't know how good of a play caller at times he was, but he gets the most out of offensive lines. So I'm expecting an uptick in production and performance and technicians from the offensive line of Kansas. And you pair it up with that backfield that they've got, I think that's a dangerous combination. They are going to play their home games at Arrowhead, but I like Kansas a lot. Kansas State a lot too, and I think Utah. And I know that BYU fans don't want to hear that, and I get that. I still have questions on Utah, though. I don't think that people acknowledge enough that the last 3 or 4 years, they've lost 4 games a year. They lose games.
Yep.
And it's even the years when they're healthy, they've lost games. And this Big 12 is a lot more physical than people realize. So, but Utah's in a position to be in the conversation from day one. And I think because you know what you're getting out of them, whereas a lot of these Big 12 teams, you just don't know from year to year.
I think the thing that Utah may struggle with, though, is that for their entirety of their existence in the Pac-12, they were always the underdog, underappreciated program. They never went into those. They never went into those big games with the expectations of winning them, and they've been anointed as the team that's supposed to be. I guess what I'm trying to say is they will have a target on their back. That's a team that I think a lot of teams outside of BYU are going to look at and say, this is a big game. We're the underrated team that wants to show them what we're about. How will they embrace being the USC or Oregon that they've never been? So I'm curious to see. They may do it well, but it is very different to be we're not appreciated, we're the pig farmers, we come in and just grind and work.
I like that take.
That's not the case anymore. Everyone is anointing you as the team that's going to the playoff, and Utah, they're going to come in and do all this. You don't think all those original teams have taken note? I think they have, and let's see how Utah responds to that. And then on top of that, you can just never assume that a team that had injuries at multiple positions and they're going to run all these players back, that they're just going to hit the ground running. Yep. You can't. That could happen, or they might not do that. Maybe Brant Keithy's not the same. Maybe that Pittman guy has no chemistry with Cam Rising, who he's never played with. You don't know that. So, and the running backs are new too. So there's they're in a good spot, don't get me wrong, but I think it is ridiculous to just assume that they're going to come in and dominate the league.
A team deep in the KSL Sports post-spring power rankings that I think could maybe surprise is TCU because of the defense. If you think back to the Mountain West days, TCU held its name based on defense. I think they get back to that a little bit with Andy Avalos at defensive coordinator. He's going to be very aggressive. He was really good at Oregon when he was the DC. I think they could be much improved. BYU in the post-spring power rankings is at 12. I think that's fair right now.
Yep.
But, I think BYU's got that ability to maybe surprise in a few games, but it'll be tough. Like, we'll see how it shakes out because BYU has one of the tougher league schedules on paper as of right now.
I'm doubling down on UCF as a surprise contender. KJ Jefferson, he's a really good quarterback. Gus Malzahn's an offensive wizard. Look, they have talent, man. They're not devoid of talent. They just
really
need
good.
to stay healthy and put it together, and maybe this is the year for UCF.
It's going to be a fun league, and just if you're a college football fan that loves chaos, this might be the league for you because this league can do the unthinkable every single week. Taking a break. On the other side, hour number 3, McKay Hillstead joins us next.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into KSL News Radio and KSL Sports, Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte. We're talking with the newest member of the BYU football quarterback unit, McKay Hillstead, formerly Skyridge High School, then Utah State for a season, now a member of BYU. And McKay, welcome on into the show.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, glad to be here.
And I think Cougar Nation's excited to have you on board, and it's unique. I think it was kind of unexpected for Cougar Nation to see you commit to BYU. How did we get here?
Yeah, so obviously after in the transfer portal process, it is pretty chaotic, and you don't know what's going to happen going into it. But I had a BYU and Utah reached out to me initially really early, and then just developed a relationship over the process of about a week and a half. It was pretty quick, I felt pretty confident in my decision, even though it was a quick process. But had some good potential offers and places that I could have gone, but I just really like BYU, so that's where the place that I'm at now.
Why did you ultimately decide to go into the portal and not stay at Utah State?
Yeah, I just I think that I wanted to be at a place where I could compete, and I think that going into the season, I felt like my coach wanted to redshirt me, and I thought that was predetermined. So I just wanted to go to a place where I can compete, change the scenery, and just learn and grow as a player and develop more. So I thought that BYU would be a great place to do that.
You noted, McKay, that you had other opportunities besides BYU and Utah. It was reported, I believe, by 24/7 Sports, that you had interest from Big Ten, SEC schools. Who were some of those programs?
Yeah, so obviously, BYU, Utah, Mississippi State, Iowa, and Cal were kind of the big ones. So, I think after the whole process was said and done, I think I had each of the power conferences reach out, which was cool. But yeah, so
with to follow up though, was the deciding maybe factor for BYU kind of the not having a clear-cut starter, or was it location? What were maybe some of the key deciding factors beyond simply competition?
I think that just talking with my family, going through the whole process, I wanted to go to a place where I felt hopeful for my future. I have a long time left to play. I have a redshirt year and then 3 years. So I just wanted to go to a place to where I felt comfortable, a place where I could see my, future being. And, just being around BYU, I know the vast amount of connections that you can develop, and just the just the institution that BYU is. So that I really valued that in the whole process, and just after taking a look at a couple different schools. So
McKay Hillstead is our guest here on Cougar Sports Saturday, the newest BYU quarterback. You mentioned, being comfortable with BYU. How far back does your knowledge of BYU go? Did you go to games as a kid? Like, maybe
yeah.
fill us in on your upbringing in relation to BYU.
Yeah, so I grew up in Springville, Utah, which is just 15 minutes, 20 minutes down the road from Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Yeah, I went to a few games as a kid. Always enjoyed the environment. I wouldn't, I wasn't a huge fan of really anybody, to be honest with you, but whether that be BYU, Utah, I feel like when I was a kid, I watched a lot of Marcus Mariota and the Oregon Ducks and stuff like that, and a lot of Kyler Murray and
You're
whatnot.
making
But
me feel old. Marcus Mariota was when I was an adult.
yeah, I was rocking the Mariota jersey just about every day to elementary school. So that was, but yeah, I mean, no history really there, just other than the fact, super close, kind of familiar with the area, familiar with Utah County. So
Did it surprise you, McKay, when BYU did contact you? Because it's pretty well documented that they didn't offer you in high school, and you had an accomplished career at Skyridge. Did it catch you by surprise?
um, no, I think, in all honesty, being a smaller guy, being a smaller quarterback, I went through a couple situations in high school just being recruited to where I was pretty confident that schools were going to offer me, and then I'd go in and measure with the programs and not what they expected, or, just not being a super big guy. And then, I'd get turned down. But, after playing a year in college football and having a successful year, I think that, just talking to all the programs that I did talk to, they were just impressed with my ability, just because, a lot of the shorter guys don't actually pan out. So it's hard for teams to bet on them and take a chance on them. So, after, schools like, BYU, Utah saw that I was able to succeed and compete at a high level, then, they were interested. So I wouldn't say I was surprised, to be honest with you. I'd just say, I was grateful and humbled by the opportunity more than anything. So.
What was the pitch from BYU and the coaching staff to that ultimately led to you choosing BYU?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know if there was a direct pitch. I think I just went in and I kind of laid it out like, look, I want to understand the scheme. I just want to be around the coaches, just things like that. And I just had those things in the back of my mind, and they were very genuine and very transparent with the scheme and just how they operate as the staff. And I think that was something that I really appreciated. And yeah, so I don't think there really was a pitch, to be honest with you. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, it does.
BYU quarterback McKay Hillstead's on with us here on KSL Sports, KSL News Radio. McKay, I've heard that you've been clocked in the past. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been clocked in like a 4.40. Am I underselling that? Like, what's your speed like? Because I've heard it's pretty impressive.
yeah, I mean, I can run pretty good. I don't know about that fast, no, but I've never ran an official 40, but I mean, that would be great if I were able to run that. But no, I don't know about all that. But yeah, I mean, I can get loose just a little bit, but
When do you feel like you're at your best as a quarterback?
It's hard to say. I think I just want to be in rhythm, and I want to feel like I know the scheme. And obviously, that happens when you're the quarterback, so it's not a problem. But yeah, just feeling comfortable with the pass play or the progressions, or comfortable with the offense, having a good connection with your guys, and say that's when I feel the most comfortable for sure.
How much did the fact that Aaron Roderick and this BYU offense in recent years with that dual threat ability, Zach Wilson can run, Jaron Hall, they used him in the run game as well as the throw game.
Mm-hmm.
I even hate the term throw game, so let me back that up. Pass game is what I prefer to use. It's we pass the football. And anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but how much did that dual threat ability speak to you as a player looking for a new scheme in your words? How much did that speak to you where it's like, hey, I'm going to be able to throw a lot and I'll be able to run as well?
Yeah, so something that Coach Roderick and Coach Mitchell highlighted when we were meeting. We talked pretty extensively about, how they have the quarterback run. It's not, they're not running them 100 times a game, or, obviously that's an over exaggeration, but it's very calculated. And I felt like at Utah State, I felt like my ability to run was suppressed just a little bit. I felt like I wasn't really able to open that up. But at BYU, obviously, because they have calculated runs, and they take their chances when the quarterback is running intelligently and uh, in a smart manner, that I felt like I could use my ability to run. And yeah, seeing the past success of Jaron and Zach, I felt like, yeah, maybe I could do something similar to those guys. So
Since you committed to BYU, McKay, have you reached out immediately to BYU's receivers, or just try to connect with some of these guys to to get some work in?
yeah, I've been super busy with the whole application process at BYU. I'm sure you guys know that that's kind of hectic.
Yes.
Moving my stuff down from Logan. So it's been kind of a chaotic and hectic week, just getting on the grind with everything. But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely planning on doing next week, just before mandatory workouts start on the 13th. So
Is Marcus Mariota a good player comp? It's hard. I mean, everyone's got their own style and flair, right? But I'm just,
yeah.
for those BYU fans who didn't get a chance to watch a lot of Utah State games last year, how would you describe your style of play as a quarterback?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd say I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I'd just say, I'd say I'm an accurate passer. I'd say, like we highlighted a little bit earlier, I do have the ability to run, and but I think for the most part, I'm a passer first, and yeah, I'm very confident in my ability to throw the ball down the field in the intermediate game as well as the quick game. So, I just describe myself just as an accurate passer, I'd say.
I'm
So.
all I'm always fascinated in the journeys of quarterbacks, and because it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources growing up as a kid to become a D1 quarterback. When did you start playing the quarterback position as a kid, and when did you realize, man, college football could be in my future?
Yeah, so I think that when I started playing quarterback, because I was playing little league baseball, and I could never figure out how to reach the ball too far behind. I don't know what the drill was. They used to teach it like, I don't know, you make a T with your arms or whatever, but I'd always just throw it right by my ear. And then I was a really wild pitcher, and I would bean kids, and I would walk a bunch of people. And then the coach told my dad, like, oh, he kind of throws like a quarterback. And I think at that time my dad took that and kind of ran with it. And then yeah, I got a lot of training from quarterback elite when I was a younger kid. I think I started in 6th grade, so did a lot of work with him, and that helped me a ton. So I think that as I got into high school, my first D1 offer was Nevada my sophomore year. So I had a good idea that I was going to be playing college football at the next level pretty early. So
Few more moments here with McKay Hillstead, newest BYU quarterback. How much did the Cougars' membership in the Big 12, playing at a high level of college football, how much did that play a role in you wanting to play for BYU?
yeah, obviously it's a huge deal. I think in and of itself, the BYU fan base has got to be one of the best in the whole entire nation. So obviously that's a draw in and of itself. But just being in the Big 12, competing with great competition, that's something that just interests me as a person. I'm always interested in developing and growing, and you know, getting more experience. So yeah, just super exciting, and definitely, definitely was super appealing.
Do you have any family connections to BYU? I know you noted that you didn't go to many games growing up as a kid, but you got any family connections to the program or college football in general growing up?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well,
No,
and I
I'm
asked
kind of the first.
I asked that. I mean, what does that mean to you and your family to I assume then to be like a first generation reaching this level and having a chance to play at BYU?
Yeah, it means a lot. Both of my brothers, we joke about it all the time. They say, if they would have got the same training and stuff that I did, they would have been exactly where I was at, which it's probably true. Both of my brothers are good athletes and super capable, but yeah, I mean, it means a ton. Obviously, it's just a great opportunity, and we only get you only get one life, so you want to make the most of it. So obviously, it's great being able to be in the limelight and having the pressure that comes with playing at a high level. So,
Couple more things for you, McKay. I know it's not the funnest conversation to have, but like injury wise, I know you battled an ankle
yeah,
last season and concussion. Just how you feeling?
yeah, I feel good. I had a pretty serious ankle injury my senior year of high school, but haven't had any issues with that, and then did suffer a concussion. Not much you can do about that, but yeah, I'm turning on all cylinders upstairs, so I'm not super worried about it. So
Here's an interesting question for you. We haven't had a chance to ask this to any quarterbacks yet, but are you looking forward to the change that just got approved in college football where there'll be communication through the helmet rather than signs and stuff on the sideline? What do you make of that as a quarterback?
yeah, in my visit with BYU, we did me and Coach Roderick and Coach Mitchell did talk about that a little bit. I think that's really the only way that Coach Roderick communicated with the quarterbacks during the spring, and obviously that's a huge help. Just giving little tips and pointers going into a play. I'm excited for it just because I've never done that before, and it'll be a new thing, and just something new to learn and something to get into. So that'll be great.
Last thing for you, McKay. I know. I think Marcus Mariota was on the video game back in the day, the old NCAA football game. Now, this whole quick turnaround from Utah State to BYU, are we going to see in BYU blue on that video game? Did you sign in for that?
I mean, I don't even know what happened, to be honest with you. I think they said, I think I tried to sign up at Utah State, but I don't know. Hopefully I can transition it down to the
Okay.
Cougars. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Got to get you in that game. Well, McKay, we're looking forward to seeing you potentially playing in games this fall on the actual field at LaVell Edwards Stadium and all the Big 12 venues you guys are going to be at this season. Appreciate the time. Best of luck, and looking forward to seeing you as a BYU Cougar.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back in. Good stuff with McKay Hillstead. It will be fascinating to see how that quarterback situation pans out this fall. Let's keep the interviews going. This time we'll go to the defensive side of the football. Another newcomer, rave reviews in spring football from Jay Hill, a weight room junkie. And as you'll find out here in a moment, he's got a very interesting hobby outside of football. Let's get to know a little more Jack Kelly.
What do you think of the talent on this BYU team? You're jumping up a level here. What do you make of this group that you're playing with?
Oh, they're super talented. Everyone over here has been able to make plays, be in the right positions. It's been awesome to see, and like the twos and the threes, there's not a drop off. Like everyone at this level can play, and it's been awesome to see everyone at all three, like first string, second string, and third string, all making plays.
When Coach Hill called you up and you decided to leave Weber State, how quick was Coach Hill on you, and how easy was it of a decision to rejoin with him?
He called me within the first couple of days for sure, but it was a quick decision once I was able to make sure my grades were going to transfer over and all my credits would be good. But once I was able to figure all that out, it was quick. I knew I wanted to reunite with Coach Hill.
What do you remember about him recruiting you to Weber State? What was that story?
He was always super believing in me. He knew that I could play at that level. He always told me that he believed that I would be able to play and become a starter and be one of their guys. So just building that trust with him and that bond, I knew once he called me up to come down here that he still had the same belief in me.
What's he like as a defensive coordinator? You know him from his days as a head coach, but what's he like as a defensive coordinator?
He's able to put all his time into studying the offenses that we're going to be playing. Also hone really in on the defense that we're running, so like make more corrections, but then also be able to pick up new tendencies from the offensive guys. Obviously, as an offensive coach or a head coach, he had to study the defenses too, so he didn't get to put as much time into both. So it's been awesome to see him really focus on offenses and increase his knowledge on what we're going to be going up against.
He raves about you as a football player, but also as just as a weight room guy. Like, what makes you so good and strong in the weight room? Maybe kind of a weird question there, but how do you become someone that is a great weight room guy?
I like to think it's all because I grew up racing BMX. So from the time I was 5 to 13, 14, I was just a BMX guy. So that was a lot of like footwork, kind of stuff we train for football right now I was doing for BMX. And also it just builds your legs up, makes you super strong in the legs. And once I started getting towards the end of my BMXing career, I started lifting a ton for my legs. So I think that was a huge benefit for me.
BMX guy. I don't know if I've ever had the pleasure to talk to someone. Why'd you get off the bike?
So growing up, I always wanted to play football, but I was always overweight. Like to be an X-Men, I would have to be an X-Men, and I didn't want to do that. So once I got to high school, my dad's like, I think it's finally time to try it out, and I tested it out and loved it.
Do you have any nasty or horrific crashes during your BMX days?
Nothing too crazy. I snapped a crank, which is where the pedal connects to. I snapped that one time, did a nice little front flip, but nothing too like bone breaking or anything like that.
So that was never a serious like career path. It was just a hobby as a kid.
No, it was pretty serious. I did it for
really
11 months out of the year. I traveled all around the country. I even went to Denmark to race it.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Denmark. You raced in Denmark. What was that like?
Oh, it was awesome. So that was for a world championship. I was a 2-time world championship and I think 10-time national champion. So it was a pretty big time thing.
How did you get into that at a young age?
My dad, when I was 3, was looking for somewhere to just race RC cars. Came across a BMX track and went out, took me out. I had a little rental bike, and then the next day he spent like $500 on a bike for me. And my mom was like, "All right, we have to stick to this for a while now if you're going to spend that kind of money on a bike."
This is so fascinating. This is a lot of fun. How do you train for that? Like, is it just repetitions? Maybe not so different than football, that it's just time and effort?
Yeah, it's a lot of repeating things. A lot of sprints. Like, it's all on the bike stuff mainly. There's obviously some weight room stuff when you get older, but as a kid, you're just trying to build bike skills to get over the jumps as fast as you can, and then also be able to learn the fastest routes through each track.
Do you ride very much anymore, or are those days over?
They're kind of over right now. My dad kind of forced it on me. I wanted to still do it, but at the end of the day, it's an extreme sport that I could get hurt in, so I respect his decision. I'm probably going to get back into it once football is over, but yeah, right now it's on pause.
What kind of career or living could you make as a professional BMX person?
It all depends. Some people I know are like sponsored by Coke, Toyota, so like you can make a living.
Is Red Bull in this at all?
Yeah, Red Bull's, they're big into it. You can make a living if you're one of the top guys for sure, but it's starting to grow. When I was in it, it was like an up-and-coming sport, but now like it's becoming a really big sport in America.
Wow, so growing up it was football and BMX, huh? Anything else?
No, mainly just BMX. I played flag football,
okay.
Junior jazz a little bit, but nothing like competitive.
Man, that is crazy. Jack Kelly, the BMX national champion, world champion, huh? Where else did you travel to for that?
I've been to, I think, 42 states.
You've been to 42 of 50 states?
Yeah, so pretty much every state I've been to, and then Denmark was the furthest out of country I've traveled to.
Switching back to football, that was a lot of fun. What appealed you about BYU? Was it being on the power stage, Big 12? Was it proximity to where you've been playing your whole college? Like, what was it about BYU that drew you in here?
It was a little bit of all that. Obviously, I'm still close to home, so my parents can still come out and support, which I really like that idea. The Big 12 is a huge thing. I want to be able to prove myself on the biggest stage in college football. And then also just having Coach Hill and Coach Enna here. They recruited me out of high school, so I built relationships with them before. So being able to reunite with them was a huge factor in it.
What's Coach Enna like as a position coach? You know, he played here, had a great career here, famous BYU guy. What's he like as a coach?
He's super fiery. He expects the most out of all of us. He's going to set the standard and make sure we uphold that. He tells you how it is. He's not going to like sugarcoat anything. He's going to be straight up. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a loving coach that's there for us and supports us through everything.
I feel like I can ask this in the spring, summer, before we get into the thick of game preparations and plans. But are there any games on the schedule that you're looking forward to? I mean, you're looking forward to them all. You want to play them all, but is there one or two that it's just there's a little extra juice behind it?
I would say Utah for sure. Growing up, like, this rivalry is a huge thing, so I want to be able to show Cougar Nation what we're about and come out with the dub in that game.
Now that spring ball's in the past, what do you think this defense is capable of?
I think we can be a top defense in the country. All the talent we have is the best I've seen. We got speed, strength, we got pass rushers, cover guys, we got everything that we need to be successful, so I think we can expect a lot from us this season.
You probably, based off your BMX past, you probably didn't have much time for video games growing up. But did you ever play NCAA football?
Yes, I did a little bit.
What's that been like as a potential, well, not potential, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
This game's coming out in the summer. What's it been like going through the process of getting ready to be in a video game?
It's kind of surreal. Like, you don't ever grow up thinking, like, oh, I'm going to be playing with myself in this college football game. But now that it's actually happening, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be kind of funny to see our ratings and see everything like that. But I'm excited to be in it, and it's a crazy opportunity for sure.
When did communication start with EA, with you guys?
It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. They reached out and said, like,
Do you want to be in or not?
yeah, do you want to be in? You can opt in or you don't have to. But if you do, you're going to be in the game. And, I mean, who doesn't really want to be in a game?
Totally.
Play with yourself on your favorite team. That's going to be awesome.
What do you get for opting in? Do you get a free copy of the game or anything?
Yeah, so they're paying $600, I believe, and a free copy of the game.
You're the college athlete I'm not, but that just feels like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, like, I would do the game for free. Like, if you just put me in, I'll buy the game. And
Do you get to choose at all your appearance? Like, do you get like, hey, this is what I like to wear, wristbands, any of that stuff?
Not that I'm aware of. They haven't reached out about that.
Okay. That'll be interesting if you get to choose that. Do you have, like, what's your game day attire like?
I'd say long socks. I like the long sock, like the scrunch look with turf tape, and then the wrist braces. So that's probably what I'm going to rock every game.
Neck roll?
No, I don't have one.
What about the face mask?
I use there's a curved one. I don't know the actual name of it, with the 2-bar. I like that one.
Okay, cool. Well, last thing for you, what are some of your individual and team defensive goals for the season?
I think we can be top defense in the country, so I want to uphold that. I think as a defense, we can lead the nation in sacks.
That'd be big time.
That'd be huge for us. So that's a goal. And then for me personally, I just want to be able to contribute to this team and make a big impact on a winning defense.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Man, it has been an awesome show today. I feel like some of these off-season shows are the best that we put together. The interviews have been great. McKay Hillstead was awesome. Kalani Satake, big shout-out to the head coach of the Cougars. Brandon Dunson, Jack Kelly, like, Cougar fans, come on. What other show are you getting this type of content every single week here on KSL News Radio with Cougar Sports Saturday? We do it every single Saturday, noon to 3. And at this point of the show, Matt, we get to the end of the program. We roll out some Cougar Tales and bring in our producer, Nate Slack. Nate, what were some topics that we might have missed that we need to get to before we get out?
All right, so starting out, this past week they've had meetings down in Scottsdale, the Big 12 coaches and Brett Yormark. And Brett Yormark came out and said that the Big 12 basketball coaches favor an expanded NCAA tournament. Do you guys agree with him?
My first feeling is no, but if it did happen, I'd probably embrace it. But why not just keep 68 the way it is? I feel like it's a perfect tournament right now.
It's perfect. The only thing that I would embrace is maybe expanding that opening round where you've got teams on the bubble, maybe double that or triple it. But I don't want to just go from – it used to be 64, and there was talk of let's just add another 32. No, I do not want to get to 96 teams.
No.
That's way too many. But if the first 4 was like the first 8 – and you got in 4 more teams, okay, sure. Maybe there's a few bubble teams that could make things interesting. But, look, it can't get so many teams that it's not special to earn it. It's still, at 68 teams, Mitch, it's still special to get in. If a third of the eligible teams in the country get in, is it then special still? I don't know. I like that you've got to earn it, man, to get in.
Don't turn it into college football bowl games where it doesn't feel like a reward if you're not in one of the New Year's Six bowls. And yeah, I would be okay with it if it's a very small increase, to Matt's point. If it expands the first 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, by 2 extra games, okay, I'll put up with that. Anything more, I don't want it. You got to keep that bracket perfect the way it is. I feel like that 68 is just a great field that maintains that. Man, what an accomplishment just to get into that bracket.
Yeah, speaking of the bubble, we have Jackson Robinson, who's kind of on the brink of NBA draft pick, or he's also in the transfer portal. He could return to BYU. This past week, it came out that he is going to be participating in the NBA Combine. Do you guys think he's going to be able to be a draft pick in the NBA, or is he going to be a transfer guy? What do you guys feel about Jackson?
I think he's a draft pick. I feel like he finds a way to get into that second round. But, Matt, you and I were talking earlier in the show on one of the breaks. What if Jackson Robinson did come back to BYU? It might seem far-fetched because he's got such a strong relationship with Mark Pope, but hey, it seemed far-fetched that Kevin Young would be here. It seemed far-fetched that Dallin Hall would be back. It seemed far-fetched that Chris Burgess and Richie Saunders would be back. Kevin Young's just getting everything done. Why not go get Jackson Robinson?
Hey, it also seemed far-fetched a few years ago, and I might be reaching for straws here, but this was one of my first hot takes of Cougar Sports Saturday 5 years ago. I sort of argued that Yoli Childs would come back, and that ended up happening, and I felt more strongly that Yoli would return than Jackson would because Jackson has a higher and brighter NBA future just by his measurables and what he did at BYU. But if there's no chance you can be a first-round draft pick, you would be dumb in today's day and age to go pro. He would make a killing in NIL coming back to BYU or at Kentucky or wherever. The thing that is so interesting about BYU is, look, Dallin Hall talked about this yesterday. We played some clips from JJ and Alex on KSL Sports Zone. He wants to play in the NBA. All these guys want to play in the NBA. BYU has an NBA sales pitch that they've never had, and Mark Pope does not have that at Kentucky. Nobody he's coached has played in the NBA at a high level, where Kevin Young can say, dude, look what I just did for Grayson Allen. Look what I did for Devin Booker. Like, look what and hey, J.J. Redick is a hot coaching name. He might coach the Lakers, for heaven's sakes. J.J. Redick was begging for him to be the Phoenix Suns coach before they hired Frank Vogel. He can sell the NBA. And look, BYU, they play in a great league. I'm not going to say that Jackson Robinson Mitch is, coming back to BYU, but the Combine will be interesting for Jackson because he's going to measure well in some facets. He's not going to test well in others. So how is that interpreted by the scouts? He's going to have a great wingspan. He's going to have a silky smooth shooting stroke. He does not have a super high vertical. He's not going to be some crazy, twitchy, fast athlete in those drills. So it's fascinating to see what happens with Jackson Robinson, but I did think it was incredibly noteworthy, Mitch, that he mentioned BYU when he talked about, I'm putting my name in the draft, but I'm also going in the portal, and BYU was mentioned as a destination there. The door's not closed for Robinson.
And it speaks to the culture and the relationship that those players from last year's team still have. The worst-case scenario, if Robinson, his next steps for BYU's sake, would be him going to Kansas. There's been rumors that he could be maybe a Kansas target. That would be worst case because you don't want to face him in league. But it would be awesome to see for BYU. Maybe one of the best things would be him going to the league and succeeding. But, man, it would be amazing for him to be back in BYU and have that door open. Kevin Young's got to feel like maybe there's a chance.
Is it petty of me, though, to want him to return and then go? So then you would say Pope still hasn't. It was Kevin Young who got him into the league.
I got that. Okay. I like it. Hey, it's happening now.
Former linebacker Isaiah Kafusi posted on X yesterday. He says, I will die on this hill. The 2020 football team was the best football team at BYU. I would take us against any year. What do you guys think about that take?
My first thought initially is no, that's not the case at all, Isaiah. His argument is going to be based on NFL because 17 players on that team got NFL opportunities, and Zach obviously leading the way being a number 2 pick. But no, you can't say that. It's not because that schedule was historically bad. Historically bad.
Not their fault, but historically bad.
They were willing to play A&M, Alabama. I remember being on the show. They're going to play the Crimson Tide. They're going to play Alabama and Texas, baby. Let's go. And it didn't happen. Like, there was a willingness, but just no. because the best team that they did face was Coastal, and they lost. But they also did face Boise and wrecked that Boise team.
Bad
It was
team,
a
though.
good team, dang good team, talented team, but I don't think they're all time.
No, they don't post the same record against their original schedule, and it pains me to say that, but
I think they could have got 9 wins.
yeah, they would have been look. That 2020 team is a very good football team.
Yes.
It's on the second level of great BYU teams. So when you're talking national championship, obviously the Ty Detmer year where they beat Miami, like those are great BYU football teams. This was a really good BYU football team. And look, in all due respect too to Isaiah, loved Isaiah. Was always good to us. Great with the media. A really good football player. Why didn't you come back? Like your decision making is questionable. You should have returned with that extra year.
I would argue that the 2021 team gets put in higher regard because of what they did to the Pac-12.
For sure.
And just went undefeated against them and were great against power conference teams. Jaron Hall, to his credit, he had some incredible wins just against logos. Virginia, USC,
Utah.
Jaron Hall, that team right there because of the Utah piece,
yep,
probably puts them in higher regard.
100%. And I would take that team over the 2020 team because, look, we're splitting hairs because both of those teams had Tyler Algier, and he was a great back.
Dax Milne was awesome in 2020, too.
Fair.
He was an amazing receiver that year.
Yes, he had a great year, but that 2021 team.
Puka.
Yeah, say no more, right? And look, if we're really having this conversation, you're saying all things are equal, totally healthy. That 2021 team was battling injuries from the get-go, man. Puka was banged up from the beginning. Jaron Hall got banged up. So, if they're fully stacked, it's hard to pick against that 21 team.
It then kind of comes down to your preference between Zach or Jaron. Like, which quarterback do you think is greater? Is Zach greater than Jaron Hall? I think he had a better single season than Jaron.
Yes.
Maybe because of the schedule, but he just exploited those teams like they were far inferior. But that's really kind of if you're talking those two teams, that's kind of where it centers on who's the greater BYU quarterback, Jaron Hall or Zach Wilson. You might lean Zach because that 1 year was amazing, but Jaron was pretty awesome.
I lean Jaron personally because of the schedule. I just don't believe that those numbers would have been the same with the original schedule, but we'll never know, right? And that's what makes this discussion fun. All right, Mitch, we should probably put a bow on this thing. Great show. Next week, we'll be back with a lot more. Look, these off-season shows, as you mentioned, a lot of fun. We got more football interviews for you. And look, there's more hoops to talk about, too. The staff's not done. So there's more news coming down the pike with BYU Hoops as well, and we'll have you covered every step of the way. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.